Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to SlashSoccerTalk, Episode 2, the search for higher quality audio. I am Andrew Davis. I am joined by the retired playmaker, RPM. How are you doing today, sir?
Wonderful, as always.
Excellent. Also today, a new member joining us is Tomasz. Tomasz, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Awesome. And despite your accent, you are not English, am I correct?
You are correct indeed. Although my mother is English and I'm currently at university in England, I am in fact Portuguese. So there's a little interesting thing for you.
Yeah. And our fourth member this week is Brian. Brian, how are you doing, sir?
Doing good, thanks.
And you are American from New Jersey, am I correct?
Yep, currently university, Barcelona fan, shameless.
Yeah, that's an interesting combination.
Prepare to get ripped apart in the comment section.
No kidding. So we lost our founder and editor and creator, Maddie, to some health issues this past week. So we hope he gets well soon. We hope to have him back on the podcast when he is done with his issues. So, Maddie, if you're listening, best wishes from us, bud. So we're going to jump right into it this week and start off with Champions League. We had 2 Champions League matches this week. We'll start with, I guess we'll just start with the obvious one, Barcelona and Bayern Munich. I'll send it right to you, Tomasz.
So coming into this game, it was hailed as sort of the big match to watch. It was return of Pep Guardiola back to Barcelona, back to the team which he sort of created, I guess, in a way.
Return of the Empire.
I don't think, although Bayern Munich were suffering from quite a lot of heavy injuries, I don't think people were expecting the dominant performance which we saw. And I really don't think that anyone could understand why Pep Guardiola decided to play with 3 at the back. I mean, we were speaking earlier in the pre-show that maybe it was to overload the midfield, but when you're dealing with Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, you can't. Matthew had RPM, you had quite a lot to say about defending us. If you want to go into that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main issues which I was having was the free man is very much a key thing you have to have with your defense. Someone who puts out fires and is able to, get about. And very often you can see with Mourinho and people like that, you see 2 free men who are able to, close the line and help everyone out in that defense. With the 3 at the back, I would have been fine with it if it hadn't been for the fact that he put Alonso and Lam in front of them, because Lam's a very hard worker and he reads the game very well. It's just Alonso is not someone who will run quite as much as Lam would. So I have a problem with the fact that he set up with Rafinha, Boateng, and Benatia to defend probably 3 of the best people to go past a defender in the world. And he didn't have the right setup to stop that, to put out the fires quickly enough, because he had Lam, who would basically have to probably mark 2 people in a time which no man can realistically cover.
I think there was also probably the expectation of Neuer maybe playing a bit of a sweeper keeper, but yeah. I think we saw from all the counter-attacking that actually happened, he was given the chance to do it on 1 or 2 occasions. But I think
my problem with him playing as a defender sometimes is you don't say, he's a good defender. You say he's a good defender for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, true. I see what you mean. He wouldn't fit in a standard team as a defender. He's a goalkeeper, and you think he should be kept that way, rather than you should expect him to sort of play as a defender.
Yeah, when it comes to this game, I just want to say I think people are being really harsh on Guardiola and Bayern in general, for their game plan going in. But you think of, Lewandowski's really good chance in the first half. I mean, Suarez was their own goal once too, but if that went in, it's 1-0, it's a completely different game. You never know what would have happened.
You're right. I know what you mean when you say it's a completely different game. But I also feel that if given the amount of pressure that Barca were putting on at the point where Bayern got that one lucky breakaway, if you score at that point in front of a full Barcelona stadium, in front of a Barcelona team who looks pumped up more than anything to play, you're just begging for them to throw more people forward. And I can see that might be detrimental if you can then make use of the counter-attack. But we didn't really see much coordination from Bayern Munich all night. I mean, the stat was Bayern had no shots on target. The only real chance they had was the sort of scrap.
Yeah, no, I would still favor Barcelona to win the game, but I just think people are being really harsh. You know, when the first goal came in the 80th minute from Messi, it's just 3-0 is a big scoreline, and I just don't think it tells the whole story, you know. But I definitely do think that, you know, that's the difference between Guardiola and Mourinho. He'll go for it. He doesn't care about what people think. And, you know, in the end, it didn't work out, but if Lewandowski put it away, you never know. Maybe he goes to a more defensive style. A lot of different things would happen. But, yeah, I would still definitely favor Barcelona to win the game in the end.
And what about your thoughts for the second leg?
Well, it's over. A lot of
You
people
think?
will say, yeah, I don't think Bayern have a chance.
I don't know. I mean, it is the Allianz, and we've seen them make plenty of comebacks so far this season. So,
Porto.
yeah,
I mean,
I would say
The
they're
only
they're
problem
quite
is
out of
that
it.
if Barcelona gets, you know, just one goal, it's just going to be so hard for Bayern to get through. Even if they, you know, even if they score a couple of goals, it's just the away goals rule is going to be really difficult for them to deal with.
The away goals rule will be difficult, but you can never rule out home support. I
Yeah.
mean, home support, Porto beat Bayern Munich 3-1. I know there's still that away goal there for Bayern Munich, but anything can happen. I wouldn't, given my experience in betting on some football matches, I've learned that you should never rule anything out.
Yeah, there's never 100% accuracy with a bet. You can't have that. There's also the fact that you don't know how Barcelona are going to go into the next game. Are they going to go into with the same style, which probably would help them? Or are they going to change it up to try and maybe accommodate for those 3 goals which they scored? They're going to try to be a bit more defensive, which I don't think that Barcelona side can do as successfully as Bayern Munich can attack.
No, I agree with you. Anyway, probably other match that happened, Juventus beat Real Madrid 2-1.
Yeah, just before we jump into the Juventus match, I'm just going to throw a quick stat at you guys. Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, I believe, if my calculations are right, are up to 111 goals for the season between the 3 of them. They have passed the combo of Messi, Eto'o, and Henry from 2009, and they're 7 back from Ronaldo, Higuain, and Benzema from 2011-12. And I think they have 6 matches to go. So they have the Spanish Cup
That's
final,
crazy.
3 league, and 2 potentially Champions League.
Especially when you consider that Suarez came in so late in the season. That's just
Exactly,
incredible.
They
So
are
you
they
would-
are one of the best attacking trios, I think, which we will ever see in our lifetimes.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to throw that stat at you guys, show how great they have been even without Suarez for the first month, and I don't think he scored even when he came back. I don't think he scored for a couple of games, maybe 7 or something. So it was great. So yeah, we'll move on to Juventus Real Madrid. Take it away there, Tomasz.
Juventus Real Madrid game played in Turin, so it's not the end of the world for Real Madrid. They've got the away goal, but I'm interested to see what sort of game plan we can expect from Juventus, because they were missing Pogba in the first leg, which everyone thought would mean that Juventus that Pogba, there's no defence there. Real Madrid are just going to take forward and tear Juve a new one, especially because Bale was back. Firstly, Bale was absent. I didn't really see much of his influence on the game, and Juventus played with this sort of aggression and bravery, which I don't think Real Madrid were really expecting, and I think the victory was completely deserved. Don't get me wrong. I think they played great, but I'm just wondering whether they try and play the same way in the Bernabeu and get taken on the counter-attack, or whether they try to do a Porto and just park the bus. I mean, there was an article in the papers about Klopp the other week when he went to play Dortmund, and he said, we're playing against the hardest thing, an Italian team which just needs a draw. And this is Juventus going into a very same scenario where a draw sees them through. So I'm just interested to see whether they do take that stereotypical Italian brute force, let's just sit back and kill anyone who tries to score, or whether they actually try and push forward and attack.
It'll be an interesting situation, because I think the problem with that game we watched was they didn't have an out-and-out striker. and it left Bale and Ronaldo with such a small input on the game. I think if they can bring maybe Chicharito and just give him a chance in this next game and see how he deals with it, and at least then you might see a better impact from Bale and Ronaldo.
The thing that I'm worrying about this match for a lot of Real Madrid fans is that it's got to the point now. We know Chicharito can score. He's shown it in previous matches. We know he can come up big when he needs to.
Yeah.
Problem is now there's not going to be a chance for Madrid to take a chance. This is the all or nothing game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Uve really has a good chance. We saw in the first leg how disciplined, how organized they are. And Madrid, especially when Modric is out, they really have a tendency when they're, short of a game plan, they just cross it into the box looking for Ronaldo to head it in. And, we saw against Uve, against the three at the back, it's never going to work. It's just Chiellini's going to head it away. And I don't know, I think without Benzema in the first leg, they were really looking for, out wide was where they were looking for chances. But in the second leg, with Benzema's back in the second leg, correct?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, I'll still tip Madrid to come back, but it'll be a really difficult game for sure.
I think it'll be a very low scoring game, but I'm definitely sorry any Barcelona fans or any Bayern fans. I know how much hype the second leg is going to be because Bayern need to pull out something big, and if anything, now's the time they can do it. But my eyes are definitely going to be more focused on the Real Madrid Juventus game. I think that's not just a game that's going to carry a great game, but it's got a really good historical feeling to it too. It's one of those games which you're seeing in a Champions League semi-final today, but you also would see in a Champions League semi-final about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. The question comes when do you stop doubting that Juventus team? Because so far, it's, every match they've went into, there's been like, oh, but it's Juventus, they're, haven't done well in Europe before. When do we start sort of giving them the credit for the work that they've done to get? Because they've worked for this position now.
They have, and they haven't done the stereotypical we're just going to park the bus and hope for the best.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't give Uve the respect that they deserve, but because their path to the semifinals really wasn't that difficult. They played against Monaco, played against Dortmund, who is really not in good form at the moment. But they showed in the first leg, they're one of the top teams for sure this season.
I mean,
and if Llorente put that chance away, my God, that would be a crazy second leg for sure.
I know Monaco aren't the best sort of team in the Champions League, but I think
they beat Arsenal.
And yeah, I don't think you can take anything away and say, oh, they had an easy route because they had Monaco. I mean, Monaco had one of the most balanced groups in the Champions League. They had Leverkusen, Benfica, and Zenit, which is a fairly balanced group, and they came top of that group.
I just mean compared to Barcelona, who had to play Man City, they had to play against PSG.
At this point, I'm going to get slaughtered for this. I think Monaco are probably a more difficult team to face in the Champions League than Man City were.
Definitely. There's no doubt.
I would agree. Man City just mentally, they're just so weak mentally.
It's not even mentally. It's the manager goes into it wrong. The play style whenever they go up. Monaco knew what they were trying to do whenever they went into Europe, and so did Dortmund. But I don't have I wouldn't give time to Man City whenever it comes to Europe.
They don't have the sort of ingrained philosophy that we see a lot of other teams.
Yeah.
We could see that develop over the next few seasons when they're consistently in the Champions League. So now that we've covered Juventus, we're going to move on to the Europa League real quick. The first match that I did not watch, but I saw the replay of the goal, we're going to call it, one of the most disgustingly offside goals I've seen. That was the Dnipro game. They tied it up versus, why am I forgetting who they played all of a sudden?
Napoli.
Oh, Napoli. Jesus. Sorry, my brain just went blank. So that finished in a 1-1 draw with an ugly offside goal. So go ahead there, Tomasz.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the first leg was actually being held in Napoli, wasn't it? Or was the first leg in...
I think it was Napoli.
It was Napoli, yeah?
Yeah.
There's just so many games.
Yes, that was an away goal. Yes, it was an away goal.
So that's huge. That's the sort of goal that gives new teams, and when I say new, I mean new to Europe teams like Dnipro, a big belief. It's the sort of goal which doesn't just affect the physical game, it also really affects the mental game. because now Napoli have to have the attitude. They have to score. If they don't score, they don't go through. They're the team now who needs to go to what I assume is going to be a very difficult, cold ground with probably a lot of fans, and we know how passionate the fans who come from that sort of area are.
Yeah.
And they've got to score. And I think the pressure is going to be huge. And this is probably Napoli's biggest test of the year, because I have them down as favourites to win the Europa League.
It's disappointing that their biggest task came from something which shouldn't have even happened in that sort of sense.
I guess, I mean, we've seen European competitions not have very good. Not had some of the best decisions. I mean, Juventus had that initial penalty which put them through against Monaco, which, looking at it now, was probably a very sort of light penalty which was given, and then Monaco were denied one in their game. But as offside as the goal was, the goal was offside, and we need to probably bash on the refs a bit for that, because that could prove, if it's a 0-0 draw, then it's that mistake which has put Dnipro through to the final.
And it's their best chance for a Champions League too, isn't it? I mean,
exactly. It has Champions League implications.
Yeah, they're only 4 points off Lazio, but if they don't get Champions League in the league and they lose out in the Europa League, I fear for Rafa Benitez.
The reason I don't fear for Rafa Benitez is he's taken a squad which was sort of hovering below the top places in Italy consistently over the past few years, and yeah, they got that big cash injection, but he's turned them into a real force to be reckoned with. They're up there with some of the hype teams from this year, so like Wolfsburg, Napoli sort of come to mind when I think of teams that have sort of come out of relative obscurity.
Good players with him as well. Higuain, someone who had a lot of doubt at Real Madrid, but has come through now as a consistent striker, and probably one of the best strikers you could find.
And
Same with people like Callahan.
Yeah, I was going to say Callahan.
All these young players, well, some middle-aged players as well, who've come in and just he's built a squad to suit the style of play that he wants to play, and he's obviously had these signings in mind, and he's brought this team together very well.
I don't think he's done a bad job in any stretch of the imagination. It's just, for owners, the difference between Champions League and no Champions League is just so big. For Brendan Rodgers, this season hasn't been that bad, but if he misses, he's looking to miss out on Champions League, and people are giving him a lot of criticism for that. I just think for owners, it's something that it's just a huge factor in their decision, but not that necessarily good.
I think the main reason why people are going to be more mad at Rodgers than they are at Benitez is because if you look at last season, Liverpool finished in a very strong second position, and although they lost Suarez, if anything, a lot of people probably saw their squad over the previous summer as being strengthened rather than weakened with the amount of signings they made. So I think the main sort of problem that we're seeing with Liverpool now, and people attacking Rodgers in particular, is more because of the fact that he was given resources and time to create a better team.
A lot of resources.
Yeah,
a lot of resources.
And it looks like he hasn't done that, whereas Napoli haven't really had the same sort of pressure on them. There wasn't this big expectation, Napoli are going to win Serie A, Napoli are going to win the Europa League. It was more of a, okay, we're starting again, let's see how we go, sort of like Valencia are doing now. Whereas Liverpool were like, okay, you finished second last season, you've got more than you had last season, do it again.
Yeah, it's like Moyes, going from Premier League champions to 7th is just unacceptable. It's just, the expectation level is just huge.
I think no one ever gave Benitez a bit of credit for they lost Cavani, and people seem to have forgotten that Cavani was the top striker in Europe at a point. And he's brought in someone who wasn't even considered, Real Madrid quality, and, has made that man the new Cavani for them in many ways.
Yeah.
All right, so... Oh, sorry.
No. By all means, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to move on to the next game. Just to highlight, Napoli is 4 points back from Lazio in third in Serie A, so they are not out of Champions League qualification domestically, but obviously their number one shot is through winning the Europa League. And I agree with Tomasz. I believe they are the favorites right now, even though they have an away goal to fight. So the next game we have is Sevilla. Subsequently dismantling Fiorentina 3-0 at home in Seville. So Fiorentina is going home with a 3-0 deficit and no away goal. I'm not sure if there's much to be said about that match, but if you've got something to say,
I'm just gonna check in and say I really, really don't want Sevilla to get to the final. I mean,
Why is that?
I am butthurt because I'm a Benfica fan, and we got through to the Europa League final last year, and we lost on penalties. But that game, I mean, I'm happy for Sevilla because they've got 3 Portuguese players, so it's always nice to see sort of our boys who've come from our league playing well abroad and achieving their dreams. But after last year, where the game was very, very poorly officiated, I just don't think I'd be able to see them win it again. Yeah, that's more of a fact that I want Napoli to win as well because I've placed a bet on them. But I also really don't want to see Sevilla win it again because it'll just hit me right in the feels.
The bias is showing.
The bias is showing, but you know what? I don't care. Just wait till we get on to like Premier League talk.
That's where it gets interesting. There's not much to say about the actual game because I mean Sevilla just beat out the other team. I mean I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I watched the goals and I watched a few highlights, and I mean Sevilla just looked to play better than them.
I watched a fair bit of the game. It was a very convincing game, very convincing win.
Yeah.
It was sort of.
I wouldn't criticize them on how they got there to that point of being them 3-0.
No, as much as I don't want them to win, they've proved why they belong where they are right now. Yeah. Every match they played, they've played well in, and it's not something you can take away from them as a team.
Yeah, and just to highlight, they are in 5th domestically in La Liga, so they are not in a Champions League spot there. I agree. I don't really want them to see them win because they've won a bunch of European Cups in the past 9 years, and it's just, you want to see new people win. It'd be nice to see an Italian team win something. So we're going to move on now to the Premier League. We're going to start with Chelsea winning the title, which is, speaks for itself. So go ahead there, Tomasz.
Well, Premier League title. Was anyone really expecting anything different?
No.
Maybe.
Well, we know you're a bit of a Liverpool fan, so.
To be honest, I've been expecting Chelsea to win ever since he gave that famous little horse, big horse speech. He gave that little wink at the end. When Mourinho makes a comment like that, you just know he's going to go all out.
It was when I was speaking to Matthew about it before the podcast a while back. Actually, we were talking about how very attractive football at the start of the season, sort of attractive and efficient, but we sort of lost that. It's like when you get your first gaming computer and you have on your graphic settings, you can have performance and then just straight out shit graphics and efficiency. At first we saw Chelsea with the full out specs, the best performance, the best efficiency, and as the season went on, that slider slowly went down, so it was just pure efficiency.
And they're just now spamming all the OP we.
Yeah, I think as well as Chelsea have played this season, I think something that Mourinho deserves so much credit for is the transfer window. Like, he went out there, he bought Fabregas, he got Costa, he got Matic, he got Courtois. He just does it so quickly and efficiently. There's no fuss about it. And when you look at teams like Liverpool trying to get, Depay and missing out on him, you just think like, wow, like Mourinho, he's a master craftsman, man. He gets the job done. And you look at Arsenal, who, if they got Matic, they got Courtois, they got Costa, where would they be in the league? They could easily win it for sure. It's just, Mourinho is he's the best manager in the world for me right now, for sure.
I think transfers aren't so much to do with the style. Yeah, I agree what you mean with the style that he's played. He's been the most efficient manager currently.
Oh yeah, there are definitely men behind the scene that contribute.
Because a lot of transfer stuff's to do with just how much resources you can throw. Chelsea, the sort of team who are in the position to be like, oh, what's that? Liverpool offered 30 million. Let's throw 50, because they can do that. I think also a big attraction to their team is their recent Champions League success, and turning and having players play well as their depth is just incredible. That Chelsea sort of have. There was I'll try and find a picture now, but there was a sort of photo at the beginning of the season of Chelsea squad depth. And
he's accurately replaced players who are aging and brought in players of an exact like, which he's quite clearly had a sight on. He's still got that lost art in some ways of actually having a plan for transfers and keeping to that plan and knowing how to execute it very well, where other managers seem to just lose out on their plan and seem to do I'm going to get the variant of that player, not that player, but someone who's like that player. which
Yeah,
then actually has a negative effect because it's
Yeah,
not the
just
player he
think-
wanted.
I just think he brings that really decisive mentality. Torres was at Chelsea for so long, just sucking up wages and playing bad on the pitch, and coaches just couldn't seem to get rid of him. And then Mourinho comes in, and after a season, he's gone.
Yeah,
And
I've just found the photo now. So the way Chelsea, this is just to show their depth. These are so obviously we have Chelsea's starting team with Courtois in goal, Terry, Cahill, Azpilicueta, Felipe Luis, so Fabregas, Oscar, Hazard, Costa, and then Cuadrado. That could have been 1-11. Or the other 11 could have been Czech in goal with Zuma and Ivanovic at the in defence. Ake, as Azpilicueta is being repeated twice. But
Felipe Luis.
this just goes to the depth. And then in midfield, although Van Ginkel got sent on loan, at the start of the season it was Mikael Van Ginkel, and then as the front four they could have had Salah, Willian, Ramirez, and Drogba. I mean, obviously Salah's gone, but you can replace him with Cuadrado. But I mean, that's two or three players repeated in two different 11s, which could both have been very competitive as starting 11s in the Premier League. And I think that just goes to show the sort of quality which Mourinho and Abramovich have built up in the team. So, as much as people like knocking them for the unattractive style which they played, it was efficient, and at the end of the year, they did deserve the Premier League.
I like the thing that owners have nowadays. The best sort of owner is the one you don't hear about, and it's very much that way with Abramovich. Because I remember, like, before Mourinho came, Abramovich was obviously being mentioned every other game, saying, "Oh, I wonder what would have happened if he kept this manager, if he stuck with them." But he's got to the stage where he's quite happy with Mourinho, and as long as no one talks about him, it seems like the club does well. And Abramovich has been very quiet. He's let Mourinho do what he wants, but he has had that critical input, which has led to success.
He loves being the centre of attention as well.
Yeah.
He knows how to. He's got this amazing talent in the way that in the football world the media normally manipulates the teams, but Mourinho has the amazing talent of being able to manipulate the media.
Yeah.
So if Chelsea are performing poorly, he'll say something like he did this year, like, "Oh, there's a campaign out to get me and my team," and for the next 3 weeks, Mourinho's attacked, and Chelsea's sort of slump in form went unnoticed, and the pressure was off the players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really worried for Premier League fans. I think was it Carragher or Neville had really good analysis saying, what else has he, not accomplished in the football world? He already won La Liga, he won Serie A. I think he's in the long haul now. He's going to be at Chelsea for a long time. He's going to bring in youth players. He's going to have the resources to constantly reinvigorate the team when needed. I think he's going to make a dynasty.
I mean, the obvious comparison is Ferguson, but even whenever Ferguson was in his prime, it's not like he won everything all the time. So I wouldn't say the competition has always. I mean, it's just let's just replace Chelsea with Man United. There's still going to be teams who are going to come in and win the other competitions every so often. But I suppose what will change is Chelsea will now become the front runner for every competition, and will be in that place as opposed to Man United, which used to be the team where you're like, oh, they're going to win it.
Yeah, I think next season he definitely has eyes on the Champions League. This year was pretty disappointing losing out to PSG, but I think he'll make that big signing in the summer for Champions League.
Yeah. I don't think he's in the position to really need a new signing. I mean, a few people might leave. I mean, there will be. It's Chelsea. You are going to see someone brought in for a lot of money. But at this stage, I don't think they're a team. I think Arsenal are more of a team that need a transfer. Chelsea can just sort of be content with the squad they have.
Well, I mean, I kind of disagree because, you look at Chelsea's squad, it's obviously, probably the best squad in the Premier League, but you take out, Costa maybe because of injury, who do they have as a second striker? You look at midfields, Fabregas and Matic in central midfield. Matic is amazing, but, Fabregas, he's not really he doesn't really provide that steal in midfield. And then who else do you put in, Ramirez, Mikel? It's just,
Oscar?
When you compare that, yeah. Maybe Oscar, but when you compare that to Bayern's midfield, Barcelona's midfield, Real Madrid's midfield, I just don't think it cuts it in the long term.
I think with the sort of style they play, though, Chelsea don't really rely on
I don't think they need it, but if they want to have an edge over those teams, or at least be on, level playing ground, I think they do need a signing like that.
I think I agree with you in the only sense that they probably need to strengthen their striker. That's probably the only place that I can see them needing strength because
Well, I mean, even now they've got Remy, who's a decent scorer.
Remy, true, yeah. I've forgotten about him. He hasn't played much at all this season.
Yeah, he really hasn't. I've been surprised. I thought he'd feature more, but when he has come out, he's always scored. So good signing by them, I guess.
He's just not a sort of high name you'd expect at Chelsea to see alongside the likes of Hazard. I mean, prove me wrong, by all means, but
I would quite like to see the English talent, which apparently Chelsea has in abundance, finally make some appearances there, because I've heard so much about it, but the only time there's only been like 3 English players, young English players, who have actually heard about and been put on the bench, and then maybe had a sort of appearance in like the Champions League, but I haven't actually seen a real good showing from like who was it, Baker or one of those kids.
Yeah, I think that's going to be Mourinho's biggest challenge next season, to be able to incorporate those kind of young players and still win the league, still go far in Champions League.
I mean, he is. I mean, they've got Bamford, who's had a very good season.
But he hasn't played in the Premier League, which is my main problem.
Yeah, I can probably next year. I'm probably seeing him if Borough make it up. If they make it up through promotion, then he'll probably get loaned back to them so they can see what he's doing, how he does in the Premier League. But they've got Zuma, who's come up through the academy, who's been incredible. He's not young in English, but he's young, and he's played well. Yeah. And there's Bamford and there's one other, but I cannot remember his name for the life.
Solanke, I think, is maybe who you're thinking of. They have Dominic Solanke, no?
No, he was English. He was English, the guy I'm thinking of.
Solanke is English, I think.
Solanke is English, yeah. As far as I'm aware.
What's his name? There's Bamford and there's another one who's been playing on loan in the Championship team.
Oh, they have a few. Chalobah, they still have Atsu, but he's at Everton.
Oh, I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Yeah, I'm not sure who you're going for, but we're going to move forward from Chelsea just to touch on some stats about Chelsea. I would like to point out that not every transfer Mourinho does has turned to gold so far. Cuadrado has yet to make much of an impact at Chelsea. John Terry scored his 38th goal against Leicester. That ties him with David Unsworth, who was an Everton defender, but who also took penalties in the 90s and early 2000s. So John Terry is top scoring defender in Premier League history, which is pretty impressive. His longevity has been impressive as well. He played every single minute of every Premier League game.
That is just absurd.
For promotions and relegations, we have Bournemouth and Watford coming up for sure. We have Norwich, Middlesbrough, Brentford, and Ipswich. Derby, despite being favorites for most of the year, have fallen out into 8th place behind Wolves. I think they were in a playoff spot at least up until the last or second last match day, which is an impressive fall. So given those 4 teams, Norwich, Middlesbrough, Brentford, and Ipswich, who do you guys favor to come up?
Before we go into any sort of things, I just want to congratulate you as an American trying out all those pronunciations. I mean, you hit most of them square on, so well done.
Yeah, I said Derby instead of Derby, but
yeah, you won't get comment bashing for that. That was actually impressive. At least you didn't say Bournemouth. God, that would have really rustled some jimmies.
What do you mean? Bournemouth is how I say it, isn't it?
No, but yeah, I'd love to see Brentford come up. I mean, they're a team that you weren't expecting to be where they are. They've played well throughout the season, but I think seeing Brentford would be amazing for them in the Premier League. Obviously, Ipswich would be nice to see as well. Norwich, we've seen in the Premier League. But yeah, I'd be happy with, honestly, I'd love to see Brentford in there, but any other team I think deserves to be there as well. I'd like to see Middlesbrough back, actually, because they've been away for quite a long time.
I think you remember the talk we had about the Championship, a while ago. We were saying my only problem with Brentford going up is they're losing their manager. They've said they're losing him no matter what. And the problem could be if they go up, they don't have the manager, the next person comes in doesn't have the style, which maybe would have suited that Brentford team, doesn't have the changes, without the money. And
they go down.
And they go down and they go on like maybe another drop, and that's something which I don't want to see to this team who's finally come into some sort of form. And maybe it'd be good if they did lose. There was a bit of sadness around it, but they come back next season, they do well, and hopefully they've consolidated in a better way than they have from just coming up from League One, or Championship, and then Premier League. So that's why I'd probably put it on Middlesbrough to be the team who will go up and then hopefully have a good time because their team is quite solid. Not to say that Norwich or Ipswich don't have the best team. Norwich probably do still have a few of those Premier League players who could help them if they go back up, and they bring in a bit of new blood, a few fresh faces, and hopefully could see a good time. But I put it on Middlesbrough.
I mean, only one team can go up, yeah? They have the 2 semis and then they have the 1 final, so only one team can go up.
Correct, only one team.
Like I said, yeah, I'd like to see Ipswich or Middlesbrough go back up, but my head says it will be Middlesbrough or Norwich who make it up. There's obviously the occasion of the playoffs are held at Wembley, so there's obviously the big sort of prestige, and that obviously gets in the heads of a lot of players. So there's obviously that thing there, but I think it's players and teams with experience who tend to thrive at these occasions, who don't let the sort of occasion get to their head.
Yeah, I don't follow the championship too closely, so as neutral, I'll just say I definitely like to see a team other than Norwich go up, just to see some new faces.
You don't want to see the team that's just got relegated, have a go on it.
So the bottom of the Premier League table, we're talking about relegation candidates in the Premier League. We have Sunderland, QPR, and Burnley. QPR and Burnley look fairly out of it on 27 and 26 points with 3 matches to go. They're 6 behind Sunderland in 18th. Sunderland has a game left against Arsenal to put them even on games played with the rest of the team, or with the rest of the league. They're 1 point behind Hull and Leicester, who are on 34 points. Villa and Newcastle are on 35 points. Who do you think's going to go down? Who do you want to go down?
I wouldn't say I want anyone to go down. I just really don't want Leicester to go down.
Why not?
I think QPR and Burnley are a given at this point. Maybe Burnley can make something happen, but QPR, their next fixture against Man City, I just can't see it happening.
The reason I don't want Leicester to go down is their form has been absolutely phenomenal over the past few weeks. They've shown a lot of grit and determination. They know what sort of position they're in, and they look like a team who's fighting for it.
You could say the same for Sunderland. They've had some really good results recently.
I wouldn't say they've got the same sort of energy which Leicester's had.
True. Villa, I'm sort of on the fence about. They've done really well. Everyone thought they were going to get relegated for sure.
Yeah.
And now they're looking like they can make it out of it. I wouldn't say I want anyone to go down, but
sort of want QPR to go down.
Why is that?
Because they've done it the wrong way. They've come to the Premier League and done exactly what you don't want to see, which is do a yo-yo thing and then come back and pretend like if they make a few more signings with a manager who's a bit of a wheeler and dealer, that they'll be fine.
I'm not a fucking wheeler and dealer. I'm a fucking Premier League manager.
Wow, that was really good.
That was actually a really good accent.
That was a good English accent, yeah.
Wow.
And probably not a good Harry Redknapp impression, but a very good English accent. I thought you were someone else.
Wasn't a good Redknapp, but
no, just turned on. That was really good.
You gotta shake your cheeks a little bit more if it's a Redknapp.
Yeah, I'm not a fucking wheeler dealer.
Not a fucking wheeler dealer. I'm a fucking Premier League manager.
And my problem was that Harry Redknapp done a very poor job at that place. He quite clearly didn't have his heart there, and maybe they go down. They have a few years in the Championship. Get an actual team together of players who actually care, and let's see what happens then.
Do any of you see Newcastle going down?
I can see them going down, especially given their morale currently.
I think for the teams currently out of the relegation zone, they've got to be the favorites to fall into the relegation zone.
Yeah.
There are a lot of matches though between teams that are in that sort of position as well. I think Sunderland still have to play Leicester.
Burnley Hull have to play.
Yeah.
Newcastle Leicester, you said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want Leicester to go down, so I'd have to say.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's really impossible to say who's going to go down. There are a lot of matches between them that'll be big.
The only thing that might save Newcastle is the fact that, for one thing, they are out of the relegation zone at this point, but the games they have aren't against like the top sides. They're against like mid-table, bottomish sides. So if they can get that a little bit of spirit going in there, a little bit of energy, and maybe just show a few of those players' potentials, then, because remember, they bought Cabela for plenty of money. He should be able to do a job there. Maybe they can get out of the relegation zone and next season
Yeah.
build. But
I mean, as awful as they are now, I just think the quality of their team and their squad is just you
It-
can't. I don't know. It'll be really hard for them to go down. And if they did, my God, I can't imagine.
Not to
Carver's the
mention
best
they
manager
are
in the league,
managed.
so
I
let's
was
remember.
just going to say that. Thank you, RPM.
Oh my God, I thought that was an Onion article. That was just ridiculous.
No, it's true. BBC, I think.
At least he
Yeah.
has some self-confidence, right?
I think people are missing the bigger picture. I think he's pulling a Mourinho.
Oh,
He's
Yeah,
making
he's trying to be
he's
a little
taking
bit
the pressure off his
ironic, but
team.
it's like maybe I don't know. But yeah, if he wants to take pressure off his team, don't accuse them of getting sent off on purpose.
Yeah.
I think that was more of a heat of the moment thing.
Yeah.
Definitely
I mean-
right now. I mean, all the talks about how Newcastle are probably going to get relegated. Now the talks about how Carver's an idiot,
yeah.
which is what he probably wants.
There is one thing which I would say for the comment is that as a player, like from what I've heard, there has to be this attitude going into every game that you're better than your opposition, that you are above them, and that you can do a job against them. You don't go into a game thinking, "Oh, we can't do this." So I can see in a sense why he said that, in a way that I'm still competitive and I still believe, but I also think that you don't word it in that way. But
Was it
if you
taken
done a
out?
Mourinho, then it's very good.
Was that word for word what he said, or was it?
I'm the best manager in the league.
Got to give him credit
Wow.
for the balls.
Yeah.
So just to move forward, I want to touch on, you said Mike Williamson got himself sent off on purpose. That was a bloodbath day for the Premier League on Saturday. There was 6 red cards in 7 matches that day, so it was quite exciting.
Yeah, I think
to move on
penalties too.
to a big name signing, we have Memphis Depay coming confirmed by the clubs,
Oh man.
not just rumors, to Manchester United, breaking the Liverpool and Spurs hearts around the world. What do
As
you guys think
usual.
about that signing?
I think it was an interesting dynamic because all the news I heard was Man United were going to go for Bale, and this seems like a step down from that, as if to say, okay, we're not going to get Bale, we're going to get this kid instead, who's only shown it in a game again in the World
That's
Cup
a good point.
and a game, and a good Eredivisie. But it sort of does give this comparison to Liverpool and Tottenham, where it was quite the opposite, where now they're going to have to move a step down and look for a player who is worse than Depay. Whenever Man United, probably that's their second signing because they want a Bale. If you understand what I'm trying to say, that it's an interesting
It's like a
dynamic.
safety net. It's a safety net.
I think the signing makes perfect sense. I think United. He's young. Okay, let's look at United's current squad. It's fairly young, and it doesn't have a great deal of depth, which is a problem we saw them have really early on in the season. I think so. He's got the young aspect. They're trying to rebuild the team up again. And also, by not spending the 90 rumoured million pounds they were going to spend on Bale, and instead spending the 30 million odd pounds, that means they can then bring in 2 other 30 million pound signings, which first of all means they're going to have 2 presumably very good players brought in. But not only that, if they can make them young, then it also solves the depth problem which they have.
But are
Yeah,
330s better than a 90 million?
Yeah, it is. I would take.
Well, depends on that 90 million is.
I would take 3 30 million players over 1 90 million player any day. Because, okay, yeah, I mean, would you take... I know Ronaldo's not... probably actually 90 million is probably a bit much for him now. But would you take... let's think of players that have been bought for 30 million.
Soldado.
Oh god.
How much is Fabregas?
Yeah, it's like, would you rather have Costa, Matic, Fabregas, or would you rather have Pogba? It's that kind of conversation, but
Yeah,
I
I'd definitely
agree.
take the 3 over the
I
1.
would rather have the 330 million for sure.
It makes sense for them.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point you bring up about the depth because what happened to Januzaj last season? He was being touted as the next Ryan Giggs, and he's just kind of faded away. And Depay, I think Van Gaal definitely has a thing for Dutch players, obviously. So I don't know, maybe Januzaj will go on loan to some.
Maybe
other team,
Schneider will
or-
finally come.
Every year.
But yeah, it's definitely a good signing though. You always like every team needs those kind of players. Young players who want to prove themselves, who want to be very direct and energetic when they play on the field. And at times this season when Di Maria has been really poor and needs to be taken off, they need that player to replace him and provide that extra spark.
Do you think he's going to have to change position from his... I know they usually plays on the wing. But let's say that Van Gaal sticks with his five at the back that he's here, or he does change to. I mean, whatever tactic he uses, do you think Depay will have to change his position at all?
I think if you look at the matches he's played with PSV, he's played left wing, right wing, and striker, or in the middle sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot less pressure on him to adapt to a position which he's already slightly familiar with.
But the Premier League is quite a bit more physical, I think, is the main thing which people have been comparing, players to.
Yeah, the Premier League has that physicality which no other leagues really tend to have. But I think there's a lot less pressure in bringing him in. Because think if Bale doesn't play striker, Bale's always been your winger.
Yeah.
When he does play striker, he's done it poorly. If you bring in someone like Bale for 90 million and say, right, I want you to play striker, then it's sort of, okay, we've got to start from scratch, and there's that risk that 90 million has now gone to waste. But you can always play him on the wing. I guess that's...
You used to play left back?
True, he did. But you don't. If you buy a Gareth Bale and spend 90 million on him, you don't want to stick him at your left back.
True.
I think by bringing in Depay, who's played in all sorts of positions up front already, there's a lot less pressure. He's young. He's got time to adapt to the league. Obviously, there's going to be that always. I mean, Premier League fans are some of the most expectant fans out there. Like, if a player's brought in for a sum of money, they want him to perform from day one. But I think with the squad that United have, people need to realise that it's going to take time for them to get into their groove and get into their pace before they can truly be the force they were before.
But is he better than Ashley Young?
We'll find out.
Nobody's better than Ashley Young.
Yeah, I think it would be. Well, there's actually a quote that Van Gaal said. He says, Depay is a goal-scoring winger like Messi, so I assume that's where he'll be playing for most of the season, on the wing.
He was deployed as a winger in the World Cup, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to La Liga. Aside from team news and table news, we know that at the top of the table, it's pretty much a two-horse race between Real Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona are 2 points up. They still have Atletico to play. As far as tough teams for Madrid, I believe they have Valencia left this coming weekend. But the big news out of La Liga is A, the Spanish strike TV deal, and B, the potential, although denied, transfer ban of Atletico and Real Madrid. So we'll start with the TV deal. What do you guys think about this whole, we don't want to watch TV if it's Zaragoza and Osasuna?
Say Real Madrid were playing Eibar, who are probably one of the not so good teams in the Spanish league. If it was being shown on a television, not a Real Madrid TV station, on a sports channel which anyone could watch, instead of 50% of the match going to Eibar, because they're making up half the team, they're making up half the players on the pitch, and Real Madrid getting 50-50, Real Madrid would be more like 70-30 or 80-20. I mean, in a world where, yes, there's always going to be imbalance, but I think that much imbalance in a league which probably needs the money spread out more than other leagues is just a bit unfair. And for teams to spit out their dummy, even though the rules are being made more fair, it's sort of like you've got your big brother.
Just to be clear to Brian, a dummy is a soother or a pacifier.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
It's sort of things are being made more fair. Yeah, the teams aren't making more money, but now they're getting less money and other teams are getting more. They're just spitting out their pacifier. It's like your big brother who's constantly getting more treats, more money, all this, all that. Then all of a sudden the younger brother gets something which makes it a bit more even, and then all of a sudden the big brother goes, no, that's not fair. I'm not going to go to school anymore.
Yeah, I think we can all agree a more fair TV deal is definitely a better thing in the long term, especially when you consider like Barca, Real Madrid, they don't need TV revenue. They have all the money in the world. So it's pretty ridiculous when they get 3 times more of the money than a team like Eibar, who are still in the same league playing the same games.
I would like to point out one of the reasons that they have all the money in the world is because of the TV deal.
But they also do get a lot of money from shirt sponsorships, and it's not like they're not going to have money.
Yeah, you wouldn't say after this TV deal they're going to be, they're going to.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it is a large it's a pretty sizable contribution. It's a lot of millions of dollars.
I mean, there was this when the revenue money fact came out a few months ago. It was the team that finished, I think, 9th in England earned more money in revenue than the team that finished 4th in Spain.
Yeah, it's compared to other leagues, it's really unbalanced.
Which is why they need this. Yes, teams are going to get upset, but I mean, it's a necessary, from their point of view, it's got to be a necessary evil if they want their league to gain more transparency. Because the reason the Premier League is so popular is because of the quality of players that you see. You can have a team like who are in 12th place, who have more money and a better squad than a team, for example, in 4th in the French league. So there's that more competition thing to watch. I mean, while Real Madrid and Barcelona and teams like that won't want their league becoming more competitive because they would rather, I assume, make easier money through just winning their matches, they've got to realize that this needs to be the step they need to take.
Absolutely. Just to move things forward, we're going to touch on the possible transfer ban of Atletico and Real. I believe Real has released an official statement subsequently wholeheartedly denying it. I'm not sure if Atletico has done the same, but there are still news outlets and tweeterers and reporters and insiders saying that the ban will happen. Do you guys think it will happen or not?
I think it will happen. I mean, you look at Barcelona, to accuse them of being the only team in Europe that's doing this kind of practice, it's just absurd. You hear about like this 11-year-old Japanese wonder kid who signed for Real Madrid. Like, there's no way that kid has a European passport. There's just absolutely no way that Barcelona's the only team that is, signing players underage. And I think they got a lot of criticism for it when the ban did come out. So I think it's definitely justice is being served right now, if it does happen, which I do think it will.
Even saying that, let's say it does happen to both the teams. Like Real Madrid, it's going to be a god forsake that they have to spend, 2 seasons with, a majority of their players and have to break through some youth. But I think me and Tomas said last week, Real Madrid will survive this. The problem for Atletico was they were going through a position where now they can make big signings and they can attract big players. They attracted Griezmann, who was a big signing because they were able to translate from Real Sociedad success to Atletico Madrid success. They're going to have to do this again, but they're not going to be able to if this ban comes through. So it's going to harm them in terms of their competitiveness, and it will actually ruin maybe some of the competitive nature of the league if that third team, who was actually challenging Barcelona and Real Madrid, are no longer able to challenge them money-wise.
Sorry, I'd just like to add a second ago I was giving the wrong impression. I'm just rethinking about what I said a few minutes ago, and I made it sound as if Real Madrid and Barcelona were the ones who weren't happy with the TV thing. What I meant to get clarified more was it's more of the Spanish Federation disagreeing, the Spanish Football Federation, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it seem like Real Madrid and Barcelona were unhappy. I sort of wanted to make it more like the big officials at the Spanish things were spitting that dummy out, and they need to realize that it's a step in the right direction. Sorry if I offended anyone with incorrect sort of way I conveyed my speech. Sorry.
We did not apologize for offending anyone.
All right. Well, going back to the transfer ban, I think, when the news first came out about Barca's transfer ban, people were freaking out. Barca fans were getting a lot of stick. But, in the end, for a team like Barcelona, Real Madrid, who, if they really, besides a player like Pogba, if they really want a player, they will get them. And I think even if Real Madrid do get this transfer ban, during this summer, if they know what's going to happen, they're going to get the players that they want. Especially, a replacement for Modric, I think is really important. But, we were like, people were panicking a lot about Barcelona, and, you look at them now and you think, it hasn't really affected them that much. It's not really been that big a deal. They're still on the way to the treble. And I agree, like, for Atletico, it's definitely a big deal. But for a team like Real Madrid, I think people are blowing it a little bit out of proportion.
I would say what I said about Real Madrid having to spend 2 seasons with maybe a team, I was meaning more the fact that they have such a strong team already. I don't think they need to worry about, like they do have, as you said, this summer to maybe spend a little bit.
I don't know, obviously Madrid have, like, a huge squad, but at the same time, you look at Mendy, who is, like $30 million. It's just, you look at Lucas Silva, who hasn't, he really hasn't played any games at all. Yeah. And then every time Modric is out of the team, they just look a completely different team. They look like they have no game plan. They look lost in midfield. Obviously, I don't think they're going to, drop down to 4th in the league or anything, but I think midfield is definitely something that they do have to look at in the long term.
We're just going to ask one question from the Reddit thread, just to involve Reddit, which is what we were trying to do here. I believe this question is actually from Brian. What do you think about players celebrating / not celebrating against their former club? Should they celebrate like it's any other goal, or is it okay to show respect for the former club?
That's not me.
Oh, that's not you. Okay, that's another
Okay.
American from New Jersey. All right. So yeah, I personally, I enjoy when they don't celebrate. I think it's a nice show of respect. But especially if there's a little bit of friction when the player leaves the team, go on, give it, whatever. I don't care. Celebrate as hard as you want.
I would have liked Morata to celebrate because you think about young players like Morata who obviously really talented, but at a team like Real Madrid, it's just so hard. If he goes for goal instead of passing to Ronaldo, he just gets so much stick from the fans. I really would have liked to see him celebrate that goal in Turin.
I think if the it should be, I think it should be done like this. If the player has come through the club and the club has given him the chance to grow, the chance to perform, and then the chance to be sold, if he then comes back to the team, then he shouldn't celebrate because that's sort of biting the hand that fed you. But I know that it doesn't have anything to do with the contract anymore, but it also alienates yourself from the fan base where you presumably grew up as a player.
Yeah.
If you were only there for 1 year, but you still had a close connection with the club, then I think it should be up to you. If there was a messy thing with the club and the club treated you like crud, then I think it's fair enough to celebrate. Especially as a big goal.
What do you think about Welbeck then celebrating against United?
If you want to celebrate, that's fine. I think the thing is, if you do feel a connection with the club, then don't celebrate if you want. But if there's a thing that you do feel like celebrating against a club that you played against, that's fine as well. If you want to celebrate, if you scored a goal in the Premier League, in the FA Cup, in whatever competition, if you have done something which people dream about, you should be allowed to celebrate if you want to. You're allowed to say, fuck everyone who just doesn't, have a way, who is going to go on Twitter and have a wee rant about you. They can do that. You've scored a goal. You can celebrate if you want.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to how much has that team done for you. Like for someone like Van Persie, if he celebrated his goal against Arsenal, I think everyone in the world would hate him. They did so much for him. So every player has the right to celebrate, but in situations like that, I definitely went like when players, keep it on down low.
Notable example of a big celebration against your former team. Wayne Rooney celebrated scoring against Everton. He celebrated pretty hard as well.
He's a big fan.
I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't mind if he does that.
At least he didn't get a pig's head thrown at him, like some players have had before.
Figo.
Yes, on his return to Barcelona, when he was taking a corner, a pig's head was thrown at him from the stands.
Wasn't one in his garden or something as well? Something like that.
Sorry?
There's one in his... I thought didn't he get something in a meal as well?
Presumably. I don't know.
I'm sure he got lots of mail after that transfer.
Yeah.
If they're willing to throw a pig's head at him in public, God knows what they're willing to send to him through the mail.
All right. I think that does it for us at /SoccerTalk. Anybody have some final thoughts, shout-outs you want to do? You want to thank your mother, brother, sister, father, uncle?
You might have some history, but we don't give a crud.
I just want to say Barcelona, treble winners this season.
Oh, it's a bold call, Cotton. It's a bold call,
Good
Cotton.
prediction.
All right, thank you from us at /SoccerTalk. Thank you for tuning in. We hope we were better than last week. We hope to improve. Keep listening. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Have a good one.